Hi, good evening. Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to, once again, another evening. I know it's a Sunday evening, and we are all preparing to either put our kids in bed or preparing for Monday's program. But tonight, we have Elaine Cunningham-Walker, who is education strategist, a single mom who's done so well for herself and the kids, and she's just going to come and we're just going to have a conversation on how we educate our kids in this country. Elaine, if you're around, I just want you to come in and please join us, Elaine, if you're here. Yes, Elaine. Hello, Elaine.
Hiya, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, and thanks so much for showing up. Thank you. I know you've been very busy. You've been working on a project recently. Do you mind telling us a little about it? Was Sister Circle? That's what I heard, right? So tell us a little what you were doing with Sister Circle just before we start. Yeah, what's Sister Circle?
Yeah, I mean, I did an event called the Sister Circle Summit, and I have a group of women that I mentor. And it started at the beginning of lockdown because I realized that a lot of women just want to be supported by other women. And we started the Sister Circle with about 3 or 4 women. And now that was before Sister Circle, but Summit. But then we grew to about 45, and then I had the feeling that I wanted to do a summit. I wanted to get this out there. And so we did the Sister Circle Summit on the 9th and the 10th of October. It was absolutely amazing. We had 267 women attend the summit, which was absolutely mind-blowing for me. And we have got a lot more in store. So our website is www.sistercircle.online. So yeah, it was really, really interesting. And the good thing about Sister Circle is that you're mentored by me. So that's a good thing as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you're planning to do this program again, right? Open to every woman, right?
Yes, we are planning to do the Sister Circle Summit again. But in the interim, we're going to have smaller workshops that we're going to do about, branding, communications, all kinds of things. I'm planning a Christmas event, but I'm not sure because I've got lots of educational events at the same time as well.
Good. So now let's get straight into it. Elaine, I'm going to ask you to, walk us through your journey. You're an accomplished mom. You've done so well for yourself. And I just want us to walk through you. If I should ask you, obviously you have 2 kids, right? You have 2 boys. How old are they now?
I have a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old.
A 15-year-old. Now, at some point, I know they appeared on the Channel 4 series. How do you call it? The Child Genius. They were there and they did very well. Now, what did you put into your kids to make them, take this challenge? Now, the reason I'm saying this is I know you're a single parent. You've done very well. And I know there are a lot of single mothers who are struggling with their boys or their girls, trying to get them to either focus on education. Obviously, you have seen something in education. Education has done something for you. How were you able to push this agenda for your kids to, agree with you? I'm sure that at some point there was some discipline, but tell us, how did you do this?
I think there's a couple of things that I want to address here. And the first thing is that I gave my children self-belief. I allowed them to believe in who they were and the gifts that they carried. And I think that's really important because a lot of times we want dreams and aspirations for our children that are our dreams and our aspirations and not the gifts that the children came with. The second is, I know you spoke about discipline, but from our culture, discipline is seen as a punitive measure and not just and it's not meant to be a punitive measure, because when you look at the derivative of discipline, it comes from the word disciple, and the word disciple tells us that we're supposed to be leading our children. So children tend to do as we do and not as we say. So if you're telling your child to read a lot and they never see you reading, then they're looking at you thinking, well, you're not leading by example. And so for me, one of the things that I did to make sure was the discipline that I gave to my children was about leading them in the right direction and looking at the gifts that they carried, and I helped nurture those things. And in the self-belief in understanding who they were and what they carried made them excel at whatever they put their mind to.
In other words, you're saying to parents that if you want to see a change in in the way your children are going must start with you. Is that what you are trying to say here?
Absolutely. It must start with you. You can't be telling your child to invest into I don't know, a better way of behaving, because a lot of times the way that a child behaves is systemic of what they are seeing in front of them. So one of the things I often say to parents, because I do parenting courses as well, I teach parents how to parent. One of the things that is that if you tell a child not to shout, but you are constantly shouting at that child and that child shouts back at you, they are just mimicking what they see you doing. You know, because remember, our children, but they're growing up to become adults. And so I always say that the first form of democracy is the family, is the home. So if you grow up and learn to be a good citizen of your family, you learn to be a good citizen of society.
Thank you for that. I was just looking at your website, and I've seen some. Now I read through it. I saw some stuff that I really want to bring up so we can discuss. Now I realized that you inculcated, let me use that word, or you brought music training, you know, as part of your children's curriculum. You actually introduce them to music. You let them, you know, play the piano. Now, I mean, the parent once asked me, and I want to bring this question to you. Do you think it's relevant? You know, is there any correlation between helping your child to either learn a musical instrument and their academic work? Is there any correlation as an educationist?
Well, the thing is this, I learned the piano and the flute, and I sang in the choir at school. So ultimately, it's a natural progression for my children to be interested in music. But one thing that I decided to do was be intentional about where I wanted my children to go. It's really important about being intentional. And we know that most Black boys go into schools and they are labeled as sportsmen. And that's what I didn't want for my children. I wanted them to be adverse music, advocates for music. That's the word I'm looking for. I wanted them to be advocates for music. And so in doing that, I introduced them to, they used to come to choir rehearsals with me. And I realized by the age of 4 or 5 that my son was pitch perfect. And so obviously then that's clearly a gift that he has. And so I nurtured them. I got them into the right clubs, into the right music facilities that they needed to address and things like that. And that's how they got into music. And they also got into drama as well. And I think that's really important. And also understanding what music means in the system. So I speak to a lot of parents who say, oh, my child is in the studio. But actually, I'm not really entirely sure what that means. I know what it means. But in terms of applying for these scholarships and getting into the right schools, that doesn't actually mean anything. So it's different. If they're writing their own songs, they've got a record to hold, that's totally different. But if we want to get them into the system, and make them relevant and get them seen by the right people, we need to make sure they have the right qualifications.
And I know you've mentioned scholarship, you've mentioned systems. I'm going to go into that because I'm going to ask you what this whole systems is and how we can access scholarship for our kids. But I want to bring in my co-host, Lo. If you can join us, please join the conversation. So coming back to you, Elaine, what are these educational systems? And I'm saying this because not everybody and I'm talking about people of Ebony Hill, people of my color, not everyone actually understands the British education. Not many parents understand, especially migrants who come, they just get their kids through school, hoping that their child will end up in a good, get a good job, and then it doesn't work out that way. What are these educational systems you are talking about? And Flo, if you have any question, please join the conversation.
I think that there are so many education systems, but you have to be clear about what you're trying to achieve for your child. So if your child has a love for entrepreneurship, what is the system or what is the route that I need to take for my child in order to be amazing in that, to be relevant in that? Because very often you get parents who want their children to be doctors, but I always say to them, it's not really about you, it's about the child. So you might want your child to be a doctor, but that maybe that's not what their child's gift is. So that if the child doesn't like science, then why are we even pursuing the doctor route? They might like entertaining, and maybe, and this is very hard for people in our community to accept, maybe he's meant to be the next Oscar winner. which means I need to start looking at performing arts scholarships. I need to start looking at that educational route. And it's really important to understand that, you know, I have a child who's a drama scholar because that's what he loves. And from day one, I should have known that that's what he was going to do. In my mind, I thought, oh, he's going to be a doctor. Maybe those skills are transferable and he might become a diplomat or a lawyer later. But that is down to him. You know, it's not down to me. It's down to him. My job and my role as a parent is to nurture his gift. You know, there is a scripture that says that your gift will make room for you.
Yes.
And so if you're not operating in your gift, how do you expect to have room in the world?
Laura, did you have, because I was going to ask you, okay, so now you've mentioned the systems and everything. Now, are you thus saying that education is not for everyone? Basically, if my child wants to, let's say, become an apprentice or go through a different route to achieve their dream, the parents' duty is to push them. How about parents who, you know, I know you mentioned it. There are parents who actually want to leave something they couldn't do in their lives in their kids. And sometimes it's paid by pushing the kid, or probably, let me use the word pushing the kid into a particular direction. The child has been able to at least get a university degree, get a good program, and the child has become useful. Are you saying it's wrong not to push a child? Are you saying that?
No, I don't. Sorry, Law, can I just come in here? Because the thing is that we have to understand what apprenticeship means.
Good.
We have to understand what apprenticeship means, because there are huge organizations doing apprenticeship. Right? Apprenticeship is not Joe Blogg's mechanic down the road. There are huge organizations, Goldman Sachs, KPMG, Rolls-Royce,
Barclays,
big organizations doing apprenticeship. So if university is not for you, there is an apprenticeship that you can go for, which still means that you end up in one of these big organizations. So we need to understand, and we need to stop this thing that we think that apprenticeship is for people who are not as smart. It just means that you process information differently. Because you can still end up at the top, but go through an apprenticeship scheme. And what you probably find is when you go through an apprenticeship scheme, you will still meet the people that did the university degree. You will still meet them. You're not less of a person because you've gone through the apprenticeship scheme. And also, if you're fortunate enough to excel at that apprenticeship scheme, the company will pay for you to do a university qualification. You know, so doing a university qualification, I have two. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm more clever than somebody else. It means that I've just understood the route that works for me. And it's really important as parents to understand that you can, if you're using the word push, I'm a bit concerned when I hear that word. The word should be
I had to use it exactly. Okay,
nurture, because push means that you're making the child do something they don't want to do.
All right, but again,
no, I mean you can come in here, Laura. I saw you.
Because I honestly,
when does a parent know that my child is not an academic man? My child wants to go through apprenticeship to achieve their goal. How do you know? That's
I'm coming in. So there's a difference between supporting your child's education and sponsoring the education. Like, you just need to allow the conversation where your child kind of can be open to you. And especially, like Elaine said, there are a lot of apprenticeships out there. And one of my favorite kind of apprenticeship between university and apprenticeship is a degree apprenticeships, where they can still go to school and still earn money whilst doing it. And I know most parents are always like, oh, but my child doesn't know what they want. Have you sat down and kind of like conversed with them to know that they don't know what they want? And that's a problem with a lot of parents. They don't take the time to kind of like listen to their children, understand where they're coming from. I always say to myself, you need to understand someone before you make yourself understood. So as a parent, if you feel like a particular career is good for your child, you need to understand why they want to do what they want to do before you try to kind of like convince them to do what you want them to do. Yeah.
All right.
That's
now let's come right there. Yeah, go, Elaine, come on.
Right there. That's the word right there. I think it's really important. I think there's also something, Nana, that you said that we need to correct, and that just because you're doing an apprenticeship doesn't mean that you're less academic. That doesn't mean that. It just means, and I said this before, that you process things differently. And what happens is the language that we use for children then actually molds them into the adults that they become, right? When you use negative language like that, when a child then goes on apprenticeship, they have in their mind that they're not as academic as the person that's doing the medical degree.
Yeah.
So that brings
because in this world, there are different areas for everybody. My mother always says all 5 fingers are not the same. So it just because a university route is working for you does not mean that it works for me. That's why we have text. That's why we have IBs. That's why we have A levels, and that's why we have the apprenticeship route. There are different routes for different people. People who are doing performing arts. Does that mean they're less academic? Because somebody doing performing arts has to act. That means they have to maybe learn 100 lines a night. Somebody who's not academic can't do that. What are you telling me? Yeah, it's just a different way of understanding how they operate in their life. You know, because otherwise what we then do is we relegate people who have got the potential to be somebody, to be at the back. And there's a story that I read about, I think it was Ronaldo. He's a footballer, right? And the story was that Ronaldo was constantly kicking things. And the first school he went to, they said that that boy is just a troublesome child. You know, he's got a lot of problems. And he went to one school, and then they said to him, you know what, go outside and kick a ball. That was when they realized that he's got a gift. And so oftentimes we often relegate people and we say that, oh, that child talks too much. I mean, when I was at school, I was told I was a chatterbox, but you know, my gift is in talking. And that is what's helped me get to where I am right now. One of the things anyway. But that's what I'm saying. We have to understand that even children born from the same womb have got different gifts, even twins.
All right. Thank you so much for clarifying that, and I thank you also for using, you know, as you said, better terms, you know, terminologies. Because sometimes this is the kind of things you hear in homes that tends to define a child for life. And thank you very much. Now, I saw a phrase on your website, and I want you to throw a bit of light on it. When you say you specialize in bespoke educational framework, Elaine, what does it mean? And there's another part where you talk about collective family strategies. Tell us what exactly it means. What you do there.
So educational frameworks are looking at the strengths. So I do like a SWOT analysis, right? So a SWOT analysis, anybody who's in business will understand strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, right? So I look at what the child's strengths are, and then I tailor it to the strength of the child. And a lot of parents come to me and they say, oh, I want Eton, I want Wickham Abbey, I want Cheltenham Ladies College. And I'm just like, I look at the child and I'm thinking, that school would eat you up alive. You would thrive better in this school. And possibly you could be made head of the school. And that looks better on your CV than you, there's a term that Africans use, carrying the class in this school that's got a brand name. Do you understand what I mean? So it's about making sure that children's self-esteem is always on a high and not damaged, because broken children become broken adults.
Because I was going to ask you, because there's a question that came, somebody was asking, if I want to get my child to eat in school, you know, what do I do? And literally you've kind of answered it in a way, but again, if somebody who's got everything, like when I say everything, the parents, you know, the child is enthusiastic about it, he's studying, he's doing everything to put himself there. You know, as somebody who's helped people, what's the advice for a parent who's got everything to put their child, the child who wants to go?
The thing is, if you want to go to Eton, you have to be a boy, first of all, because I've had people who've got girls come to me. You have to be a boy, first of all. Right. But the thing is, you must know that you're going to Eton right from when the child is born, because you must know the right nursery to go into, the right feeder nursery to go into, what pre-prep to go into, what prep school to go into, and preparation up to age 13, because Eton starts at age 13. But by the time they are in year 5, so by the time they are 10 years and I think it's 6 months, you have to have registered your child. Before, Eton used to run a policy that you register your child as soon as they're born, but they've subsequently changed that. But if you want your child to go into Eton, you've got to have all of these things. And then you've got to decide from the age of 3, am I going to make my child a sportsman, a musician, this, that, you know, what are they going to be specialized in? And so the journey of scholarship doesn't come in 1 year. The journey of scholarship takes many, many, many years. And I always use Usain Bolt as an example. If you are competing for a government, remember, these schools, you are winning a place. You're not just, you are winning a place, right? So you're winning a place. And because you're winning a place, how do you win a race? You've got to be the best. So you've got to be so Usain Bolt did not become the fastest man on earth because he got up and he trained maybe once or twice in the week. He had a consistent plan that he was going with. And I always say that Barack Obama didn't become president by mistake. He had a consistent plan that he was going with. And a lot of the times, a lot of our parents do not have consistent plans. They think about things when you have. I speak to students who are 16 and you ask them, okay, so what do you want to study at university? I don't know. That is worrying for me because you're up against people who've known from when they were 5 who they were going to be and what they were going to study. And that's the issue, right? The issue is, we, like Law said, we don't have enough conversations with our children. And they're two-way conversations that are needed, not you must do this, you must do this, you must do that. It's important for us to listen to our children. Because we do not listen to our children, we're not able to hear who they're meant to be. We push them out and we say, you're going to be this, you're going to be this, you're going to be this. But actually, if we listen to them, we would hear who they're meant to be.
So if I mean, just to repeat the point you just said, if you want your child to do or to get whatever you want to do, there has to be a consistent system put in place for the child. And the parent need to drive that force. And this is not just because of eating or maybe getting to it. There has to be something. I mean, not because you want to get them there, but it's just because you just have to put a system in place. Is that why? Okay.
You have to have a system in place. And I think the other thing is that if your child doesn't get into that school, it means the school is not right for them. They haven't failed. It means the school is not right for them. That's what we need to teach our children, because otherwise they go around thinking that they have failed. I've got children that I've met who've got 85% in an exam, but because everybody else in the class was getting 90, they felt like they were a failure. And that is incorrect. You know, that is incorrect because, you know, children who go to these types of school are in the top 2% of the country. There's still another 98% out there. You know, we don't want you to be at the bottom, like 0%, right? But we want you to be operating. Whatever you find yourself doing, do it well. That's what I always say. And I think that's a scripture as well. Whatever you find your hands doing, do it well. These are the things that we need to teach our children so they take pride in what they're doing. Because otherwise what happens is, oh, I can't be bothered with that. I'm never going to be that great. Well, who told you this? Who told you this? And I find it funny when people say, oh, I'm rubbish at maths, I'm rubbish at English. But there are Chinese children that come into this country that can't speak English, but they're getting first in English at university. I'm just saying. They have a plan. They have consistent ways of doing things. And that's the problem. We don't have a plan. We just do things anyhow. Have a plan. There's nothing wrong with having a plan. And there's nothing wrong with having support along the way. So if my child is struggling in a particular subject, maybe the way that the teacher is delivering the information is not working for the child. So you need the tutor to substitute that, or you need the child to do some extra lessons. That's fine, whether it's with my extra lessons or whatever, or you can come and speak to me about, listen, my child is struggling with this. We've got a revision class at the end of October. We'll talk about that, about how important it is to keep the child's learning ticking over. Because what happens during holidays is that our people just go, oh, they're on holiday, they can be playing PlayStation all day. No, the other people are ticking over. So when you get back to school, everybody's top of the class and you are struggling. Why are you struggling? Because you didn't have a plan.
Okay,
And
talking
can
about
I just
yeah,
can I just say that there's also a difference between a static mindset and a growth mindset. And in the African household, what you see is just a static. It's either you're great or you're not. But children need to understand that there are different levels to it. Yes, you failed, but because it wasn't your time yet, you've got a lot of time to be better. And that's one thing that even from my own educational, background growing up, I never got the chance kind of like grow in my studies. It was always either got an A or there's nothing there.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because you're either great or you're not. I mean, I do set boundaries because I think it's really important to set level. I remember when my children were growing, and I used to say to them, you can't come home with less than 18 out of 20 for a spelling test, because we've done the work. There's no need for you to be coming home with 15, or if you do come home with 15, what happened? Did you not follow the system? Did you not revise? Oh, okay. Well, look at the reasons. Let's backtrack and look at the reasons why you didn't get the grade that you were meant to get. I think that is really important. But when parents say, oh, you didn't do well, so-and-so is doing well. And that's the other thing. We like comparing too much.
Yes.
The comparison is bad.
And competition, unnecessary.
Listen, when we did the Sister Circle summit, we said that another woman is not my competitor, they are my collaboration. And so what I find is that a lot of people, when somebody else is doing well at something, it's okay to ask. That's how I got the teachers that I got. There was a mother whose child was excelling at the piano, and I said to her, how are you doing this? And she was honest enough to tell me, we're using this lady. And she gave me her number. And that lady, she's amazing, like literally amazing. And so that's the problem. We don't share information. And then we want to sit there and want to talk about, Black Wall Street, Black Pound, but we're not happy for somebody who's doing really well. It's just annoying.
I was going to go to this. I mean, I want to ask you, Elaine, personally, what was the plan you had for your two boys? Just share just a little bit with us, if you can. Because it wasn't easy. Yes, go on.
My plan was that my children would not be statistics.
Good.
Everybody knows that, Black boys from a single parent household are not meant to succeed. I read an article today by McKinsey, who McKinsey wrote a study that between the ages of 0 to 6, the Black boy is about 10 times smarter than their white and their Asian counterparts. Between the age of 7 and 11, something happens that reprograms the Black boy's mind that says that I can't achieve and that I'm only supposed to be here. That is not true. And the reprogramming comes by the language that teachers use, the expectations that they place on them. And so I decided, and I made a decision when my ex-husband left, when my first child was 6 weeks old and was, in and out of their life, I made a decision that my children would not be part of that negative statistic. They would be different. And so I searched, and I think that's in my video. I searched, I knew what I had to do, but sometimes it's just getting the ability and the belief system to know that you can do it. So when the opportunity of Child Genius came along, honestly, we applied not because we thought we were brilliant. We applied just because we thought, this is just something different. And actually, at each stage that we were getting through, we were laughing as a family, going, "Is this really us? Like, is this really happening?" And then we finally got to the top 20, and we were two of the top 20 brightest children. That was because of the hard work that they had put in before. That was not something that happened overnight. No. But that was because I was resolute and I had a plan. I didn't want them to be a statistic, and I still don't want them to be a statistic. I'm going to be sitting there with my legs crossed when they walk across that stage, whatever they're doing, and they've got their cap and gown. I'm just like, yep, that's my son. Beat the odds.
If there is, I know this is about, if there is a single parent who is struggling, listening to you at this time, what's the one advice you will give them regarding the education of their child? What's the one thing that, before we came in, we're having this conversation about how your pain can lead to purity. Now, what's the one thing you can say to somebody who is going through a difficult moment, trying to understand, or try to figure out, help their child in the education and being a single parent? What would you say?
I think I'd agree with Law. And the first thing starts with a conversation. If your children are old enough, it starts with a conversation of, you know, where do you want to be? And I don't want my current situation to define where you're going to end up. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people deal with. The current situation then dictates where they're going to end up. And we don't want that. So I think because, you know, everybody's story is different.
Yes.
But the story that must be the same is that make a decision. Make a decision, do your due diligence, research, speak to me, send me an email, let's work together. Because a lot of times people don't see the gifts in their children. They're surrounded by so many problems that they don't see the gift that they carry, and they don't see the gift that their children carry. And that's the issue. So as a single parent, what I would tell another single parent, and the thing is, it's not just single parents. You can be in something that I struggled with a lot was that people use the term broken home. I'm still trying to understand what that means, because you could be in a 2-parent family and your house could still be broken. So I'm just going to leave that right there. But I'm just saying that it's really important for everybody to be on the same page. And it's really important that everybody sits down and says, right, this is what we're going to do together. And we plan out and we map out the same way you plan to buy a house, the same way you plan to get a promotion. Why can't you plan your children's education?
And that brings to me, if somebody should come to you and ask you for help, what I mean, basically, you're an education strategist. You specialize in helping people, looking at their needs. So if somebody should come to you, what should they expect, and how can you be contacted?
Well, one of the things that a product that I've just put in place is the fact that I realized that there's a lot of children who were left behind during COVID, the lockdown period, and that there are so many holes in their understanding and their learning that we need to address those issues first before we start talking about what school they can go in, because otherwise I'm not setting you up for success. I'm not setting you up for success at all. And I think it's really important that a lot of these children will go on to these schools. I'm an advocate for getting them into these types of schools, because you know why? You get certain classmates from these types of schools. You get certain networks from these types of schools. And then you have a seat at the table and you have a voice. You talk correctly, you argue correctly, and you make your point correctly, right? So that's one of the things. So I put together a half-term revision course that every parent should sign up for here. We have maths, English, and science, because those are the core subjects that I believe that we need to work on first, and then we'll look at the other subjects. And that's for ages year 1 up to year 13, because I think it's really important, because there were a lot of children just sitting at home not doing anything, and that is a concern for me, right? So the next thing is that we look at, what do you plan? Like, what's the plan for this child? Because you can't plan for like 2 years. No, what's the long-term plan? What are we trying to achieve here? Are we trying to get them to Russell Group? Because that's the other thing. Parents come and they say Oxford or Cambridge. Well, there are other universities apart from Oxford or Cambridge. If we're aiming for Russell Group, so that when people see you, they know that you went to a very good establishment. And even if you're not, if you're going to a music conservatoire, you're going to the best. If you're going to fashion, you're going to the best. So we make sure that we're the top of our game in everything. Okay. So that's what I basically do. And every child, and the reason why I said bespoke is that every child that comes to me is different. You might be coming from the same family, but we're all different. And that's why I'm a strategist, because this strategy might work with one person, but it might with that. But my goal right now is to make sure that the children that were left behind during the lockdown period have got their holes filled up. And that comes by, doing extra work, coming to our Saturday schools, getting extra tutors. And you know what? And I'm going to say it here. A lot of the times, parents' priorities are in the wrong place. So they would rather pay a lease for a big 4-wheel drive or funeral cloth than they will put that money into making sure that their children get to the top of the class. I'm just saying.
Law?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready. I've got a few questions coming in, so I'm definitely ready.
Now, okay, before Lo comes in, just let me ask. I mean, right on your website, there is a profound statement there which I really like. You said that there is genius in every child. All we need to do is to nurture and develop it. Is this something you believe? And is this something?
Absolutely. I believe that every child comes to this earth with a gift, and even if we go to the scriptures, and everybody knows that I'm a believer, so there's a parable of the talents, and so that means that everybody comes with a gift. And there's even a scripture in Jeremiah that says that before I knew as a clot of blood in your mother's womb, I called you as a prophet to the nations, which means that every child, and I spoke about this, every child comes with a gift. And the reason why I want children to operate in their gift and move into these institutions is because I want them to be raised in a particular place. So, for example, if we use Moses' ultimate assignment was to be the deliverer of the people. He could not become the deliverer of the people if he was not raised in the house of Pharaoh. He needed to be raised in the house of Pharaoh so he understood how the Egyptians thought, understood how they operated, so that when he went into the wilderness and he came back and he was speaking to them, he spoke in their language. And a lot of times our children are not in these institutions, so they don't know how to speak correctly. So we were talking before we came on, there is a certain kind of genre that black boys, black girls are told to speak in. So the word man, how you doing? That doesn't work around Boris Johnson's table. Why do you think it's okay? That is a stereotype that has been given to you, that's how you speak. Somebody asked me recently, came up to me and said, I think was clicking their fingers and said, "Oh, Elaine, you must know what that means." And I said, "Why? I don't know what it means." What she was actually saying was that I've seen most black people do that, so it must be something that you know. Well, actually, I don't know what that means, because that's not what I was raised in. That's not the house that I was raised in. I was raised in the house of Pharaoh, so I have a certain way of doing things and I have a certain way of understanding things, and that's what we need to do for our children.
Earlier, the reason I asked the question here, because earlier on you had said that up to a certain, age, people of urban hue, black people, boys, they tend to be very smart. Past a certain age, they begin to absorb some of the stuff being told them, and then their intellect begin to fall and everything. What can we do as parents? What can we do as a community? To keep either the esteem or the intelligence. I mean, to keep them smart. Where are we failing at? Where is the problem? I just want to know. If I have a son, if I have a nephew who is doing so well at school, and suddenly things begin to drop, and I can't find out what can I do? There's no help. That's what I want to ask you. What do you have any answers to this? Where are we failing as men, especially fathers or mothers? Where are we failing?
Well, I think part of the problem starts from when they go to school and they go to parents' evening. I see parents going to parents' evening without a notebook. Why are you going without a notebook? Why are you going out without the previous reports? Because we need to hold teachers accountable, and that's the problem. We're scared of holding teachers accountable and saying, well, last year he was here and he hasn't moved on. Can you explain to me why? Can you explain to me why? Because I, as a parent, want to make sure that my child excels, and you have an educational responsibility. You have a responsibility to make sure that my child meets certain criteria, and that is not just we just get a C and we're happy with that. No. We don't want to just get past the goalpost. We want to fly past the goalpost. So you have a right as a parent to hold the teacher responsible. And that's the problem. So we feel and we believe everything that the teacher says. Listen, when teachers come to me with certain things, I always say to them, okay, that's interesting. So how did you get to that conclusion? Because I need to be able to ask you, because if you've come to that conclusion, I need to see the evidence. Where are the receipts, as somebody would say? Where are the receipts? Yeah, where are the facts? A lawyer deals with facts. A doctor deals with facts. Why are we talking with your opinion here? We need facts. And if my child isn't doing well, why have you waited till the end of the school year to tell me? That's the other thing. So we almost have to micromanage these teachers. I think maybe it's a little bit easier in the independent sector because you're paying for it. Okay, so you have to do a return investment. But actually, in the state sector, you are paying for it in a way because you pay taxes. You pay taxes. So let's be really honest here. You have to hold these teachers accountable, and you have to say to them, listen, I'm not here because what you don't want to be labeled with is the parent that's, you know, the problem parent has always got something to say. You come with facts. I've been asked by a teacher after I sat down, I listened to what a teacher had to say about my son. You know, he doesn't listen. And the only question I asked them after they finished talking was, what are your expectations for my child? They didn't answer. And that speaks volumes.
It does.
Because your expectations for my son was 0, because you know what? Coming from a single parent family, you don't know where he lives. I've had parents who've come onto the road that we live on and said, I think I'm on the wrong road. Why? Do you understand? So the thing is that we are failing in our part as parents, and it's really important for us to understand our role in this. It's a triangle. It's the child's role, the school's role, and your role. It's very, very important. And I'm not saying that the only route is via independent school. You can get through state school and that's fine. You can get through state school and that's fine. But what networks will your child have at the end of it? You're making the journey harder than it needs to be. Why? To prove what? I don't know. There's people putting up mansions in Africa and their children don't even want to go to Africa.
Oof.
I'm just saying.
You just said it. Your questions now.
Oh, okay. So the first question is, do you have any advice for parents of young children under the age of 6 who are performing 4 years beyond their years academically, i.e. a 5-year-old performing as a 9-year-old in maths, English, and science?
Okay, I think the first thing I'd ask you is, how do you know they're performing at 9-year-old stage? Because if they're in a state school, know that private schools operate 2 years ahead. So you need to get that checked correctly. You can get in touch with me and we can arrange a formal assessment. If they are under the age of 6, why are you not going to an independent prep school? Because you're not. What's going to happen is that child is just going to get bored with school because the work is too easy, and the school will not be able to cope with the capacity of the child. And so having a very bright child is also a special educational need for people who don't know that. I had a child, I've got 2 really smart kids, but you know, the fact that he lacks concentration was to do with the fact that he's bored in the class. And so I had to look for another avenue to extend him, because sometimes doing the work 4 years ahead doesn't necessarily mean that the child is smarter. You need to deepen the work. So you need to deepen the work. So if they're doing phonics, well, we can take it a step further, not necessarily a year further, but deepen the work. And that's really important. So they could be operating math, English, and science at 4 years above their age. But in terms of, if we want to get to the scholarship level, we need to deepen their thinking and deepen their understanding of that particular topic.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if my throat is a bit. Oh, sorry. Just like on the level of deepening the works, it's when like Bloom's taxonomy, I don't know if you've heard of it, that's when it comes in, going beyond that place, remembering it and understanding, kind of like going into a step of applying it to real things in their world, kind of analyzing what they're doing. So it's not, I can remember, you know, how a cell is formed, but can you apply it when you see it? Can you, yeah?
Because that's the difference between an A and an A star. That's the difference. Yeah.
Application. All right.
Application.
Okay. Yeah, go on, Law. Yeah.
So I was going to ask the next question, unless you've got something to add.
No, go on. Take it, and then I'll take the next one. Yeah.
So the next question is, how do you make corrections when a child is in secondary school to help them excel?
Well, you have to ask yourself, and it goes back, it's the same principle. They're in secondary school doesn't mean that they failed. It just means that I always say to people that you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. So you know what didn't work before, and you begin, you can have a conversation with Elaine Find out what it is. What are you trying to achieve? If they're in secondary school, then ask them, what are you trying to achieve? And I always say to people that it's not written in stone that you have to go to university at 18. When you go to university, you see people from all ages. I had people in my class who were 60 and they said they just were bored, so they felt like doing a degree. Yep. So actually, I don't know where you got this idea that everybody has to be going at a particular rate. You can literally choose the path that you want to take. Yeah. So if they're in secondary school, if they've done the GCSEs and they haven't got what they needed, there is a way to just repeat the GCSEs and do them slightly differently. Yep. And then you can go on to A-level. If you don't want to do A-level, you can go on to apprenticeship. If you don't want to do A-level, you can go into BTECs. I mean, there are so many options. But what happens is we have this linear way of thinking that this is the only way. Who told you? Because my friend's child is doing that. But that your friend's child is not your child. Yeah.
And even quite recently, there is a new program for post-16. It's called T-levels. So it's like a bridge between apprenticeships and like BTEC, and kind of like introduced it. It's quite new. So the current programs are few, but in the next 3 years, I believe they're hoping to expand it. And that's also like a new thing where parents can look into and children can look into to see if it's better for them in comparison to BTECs and A-levels. I guess it all goes back to the first thing that was said about communicating with your child and making sure you understand where they want to get to, and like how you can help them get there.
Exactly.
All right, Elaine. I know we've just mentioned, you've spoken about this. You've touched on the role, some of the things parents can do to help their kids improve in terms of teachers' accountability. Now, I want to also know, when the child comes home, when your child comes home after school, what are some of the things you did to make sure that they were staying on top of doing well at school? Because I'm saying this because I know homes where television rules. I know homes where, in this age of mobile phones and, everything, and there are more gadgets at home than books. What advice do you have? What are some of the things parents can put in place to ensure their kids are doing well at school? Yeah.
Well, I think it comes back to what Law said. Conversations. Do you speak to your children when they come back from school? Do you ask them how their day was? Because in them talking about their day, you can see, as an adult, you can see where the problems are. Or somebody might say, I don't want to talk about what happened in music today. And then there's a problem in music, right? And the other thing is, when you say gadgets rule, we're in a technology age. So what kinds of things do they have on their phone? So for example, when I want to speak to my children, there's no point me shouting. Let me just text them. They're on a WhatsApp group, we can text. But what kinds of things have you got on those gadgets? Have you got educational games? Have you got this? Have you got that? If you don't have any of that, why are they on their phone? Why are they on their phone? And the thing is, we give them phones. My threat to children, my kids, when they don't do things, when they don't do things that they're meant to do, is, do you want me to get you a brick phone or do you want a smartphone? And they come correct soon after that, because they understand that they prefer a smartphone. It doesn't look cool to have a brick phone at school. No, it doesn't look cool at all. But the thing is, as a parent, there are certain boundaries that we need to put in place. So the schools that they go to, they know that 9:30 they have to hand in their phones, and they're not allowed to use their phones in lessons. These are rules that have consequences, and a lot of the time we have boundaries with no consequences, and we don't give our children choices. So when I say to my child, do you want a brick phone or do you want a smartphone? I've given them a choice.
Awesome. Yep.
And that's the thing. We disempower children by telling them this is how it is. That's not a boundary. That's not a choice. That's not a consequence. That is not a way of growing a healthy child.
No.
Right? We have to teach them that we live in a democracy. So living in a democracy means that I have to have certain boundaries in my household. If you want to operate like you are a dictator, that's never going to work, because what happens is the children push against those things and they won't listen to you. And what happens, they won't tell you anything, but they'll be telling their friends. And then before you know, they're operating in a gang, all kinds of things, because you have not made your home open for them to be honest about certain things, to have certain conversations. we're scared of certain conversations. We don't want to talk about certain things. So, you know, if you're a girl, you can't talk about boys. You can't, if you're a boy, you can't talk about girls. I joke around with my kids, like, is that your girlfriend? And they're just like, Mummy, you're so embarrassing. But at the end of the day, that's because that's how I behaved with my parents. So it's fine. You know, I saw my parents being who they were. And so when I got married, that's what I wanted for my family, you know. So it's really, really, really important that we have conversations with our children. We have boundaries. We can also even have a timetable in our house. Why our children come to the house, they don't know what's happening from here to now, and I'll just turn on the TV all day and, oh, I haven't done my homework. No, there should be a timetable that everybody, when they go to school, they go by a timetable. They know they have to have registration at this time. They have got this session, then that session, then they have break, then they have lunch, then they have this, then they have that. Why don't we have that in our home? There's nothing wrong with that, you know.
You know, I like a comment there. It said, Nana, it doesn't start from home, oh. It doesn't start from home, oh. As I see parents every day picking their children from school and they are on their phones. Listen, if there's any parent listening to me, please listen. I have realized that the best time you should spend with your child is at least 15 minutes before you drop them at school and the first 15 minutes after you pick them. If you miss that, you are missing a lot. Your child can tell you her fears and her concerns, or their, I mean, I've got a daughter, so I'm saying her, before she gets to school, at least when you are with her. And then when you pick her up and you say, how was your day? Depending on the relationship you have, if you're on the phone, she's not going to talk to you. She's not, and if it continues for more than a term, she knows mom and dad are not interested. She begins to talk to herself. I'm saying this to parents. Before you drop your child, whether you are driving or you are walking them, at least 15 minutes or 30 before you stop. I mean, stay off the phone and then just keep talk and then talk to them, because that's when you will get stuff. I'm sorry I have to put this here, because I've realized something by talking to my daughter just 15 minutes before dropping her, or even her telling me things maybe 15-30 minutes after I've picked her. No phone, we just have a chat, and she's telling me everything happening around her. So Elaine, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much. There's I have another question here. I mean, some people are asking Elaine for your contact, so I think at some point you're going to put your imagine watching this. I'm going to watch real stuff on YouTube. Somebody's asking for your contact, how they can contact you. So if you can make it available, Elaine, your social media handles, how people can reach you if they want to come and see you.
Okay, so on social media, on Instagram, I am at Forbes Featured Mum, because I was featured in Forbes and featured in Tatler. At Forbes Featured Mum. On LinkedIn, I'm Elaine Cunningham-Walker. On Twitter, I'm Elaine C. Walker. If you want to go to my website, you've got www.elainecunningham-walker.com, and you've got www.everything's education, everything's with an S, education.com. And if you go on my website now, you can actually download my book, which is free at the moment, which is Unlocking Your Child's Genius, which is really important. And we talk about some of these things in the book. We talk about conversations and knowing and having a safe space in your home where children can talk about things, because there are things that bother children, really bother children. But when they feel like they can't talk to you as a parent, they start talking to people outside. And when they start talking to people outside, that's when they give them nonsense.
And I mean, I'm just going to touch on two. I'm sure, Laura, you have a lot of questions. Laura, can you prepare your last two top questions, your top two questions as I ask Elaine, Elaine, in simple words. I mean, I want you to, if there is a parent listening and wants to make amends, wants to change, because this program is about inspiring and challenging people to change. If there's a parent listening to you, and especially a single mom, or even a home where there's both mom and dad, and they are still trying to understand the British education system, trying to get the best for their kids, what's the one advice you give for a parent who's trying to, you know, bring a change in how they educate their child in terms of making their child do their best or be on top of their class? What one advice can you give?
I think the first thing is to make a plan. Like, what are you trying to achieve here? Because wanting to be the best doesn't make any sense to me. That's such a broad statement.
Good.
Wanting to be the best at what exactly? What are you trying to achieve here? The best at sports, the best at music, the best at technology? What are you trying to do? Like, there's a lot of parents that just think that coding is a waste of time. Coding is the language of the future. You know, so you've got a lot of parents who say, oh, why do you want to do
this guy
cybersecurity at A-level? There's a lot of money in cybersecurity, you know, and so I think that parents need to decide and sit down with their children and have a conversation. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Then they can come to me, of course. But I think the main thing is to start having a conversation with people.
Yeah. Laura, can we take two of your top? I know you have a lot of questions there, but just take two, and then I'm going to ask Elaine the last question, and we bring the program to go on.
I'm going to ask this question because I see the problem in the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So it says, I remember when I was in secondary school and I was told by my teacher when given feedback on my work, oh, you've done really well. I'm happy with your work. I don't think you could have done anything better, but I was graded a C. How can young people today overcome this? How can their parents support them? Feedback like this dampens self-esteem and makes you subconsciously give up.
Yeah. And the thing is, I see this all the time, and I find it very, very disheartening as to why have you graded me a C if I've done really, really well? Is that because you were trying to make? I'm not really entirely. It's tautology. I'm not really entirely sure what you're trying to say to me, because in one hand you say I've done really well, but then the C grade does not equate to doing really, really well. The C grade, what I see that the C grade equates is that's your expectation of me. You don't expect me to get an A. And because you don't expect me to get an A, you're just going to grade me at where you think I'll be happy. That's where I come in and I ask, are you God? Did you create this child? And that's the kind of parent that your child needs. You need to understand that the child that got an A, what did they do differently to my child? If they did the same and my child got a C, your child got an A, we need to have a conversation. We need to be speaking to the senior leadership team. That's what you need to say. And so very often teachers say that and they get away with it. And then we blast the child for not doing well. But actually, it might be a subconscious bias that the teacher has against the child.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
We need to address this. You know, there's nothing you could have done better, blah, blah, blah. I'm giving you a C. Why? Why are you giving me a C? And sometimes the child even needs to ask that, but we have to be careful because I said to a parent recently that, yes, the child, and the teacher said to me, oh, the child could have asked. And I said, you've got to remember where the child is coming from. He's a black boy who's 17. And so if he asks why, he could be deemed as being rude. And then that becomes another issue. So the parent then comes in with facts, not from an emotional point of view, but you know, my child got this mark. How can we improve on this? Because we're all about improving the self-esteem of the child, because you haven't done that in this instance. You've praised the child and then you've given them a rubbish grade. So actually, what would have been more constructive is that you did really, really well. I'm grading you a C. Next time, in order to get an A, this is what you need to do. That is more constructive than you could. So that I don't think you could have done anything better. C, huh? Yeah.
And just because you mentioned constructive feedback, if we take this feedback that's been given, first of all, it's what I call a useless feedback because you haven't mentioned what they did well. Okay. I think your work is good. What about my work is good? Is it because, for example, if it's a maths work, is it because I've structured my equations? Have I proven the things I've solved? Why is my work good? And if for this feedback to be truly constructive, even better if your work could have been better if you added A, B, C, D. Since it's not there, my grade is not justified. And that's what parents or even us as young learners, we need to kind of like question our teachers on. If my work is good, what went well? What about my work made it great? So I can at least learn from that and put it again in my next work. Even better if, how did I miss the A grade? How did I get a B? Let me know what I could do better next time to improve my work another time. Because And I think that's one of the things that not even just as parents, as young learners, we need to kind of like hold our teachers accountable on. My feedback from the beginning of the term need to be consistent till the end of term. If start of term you said I was great in this English paper, and let's say I write another paper and you said I am still great, but then end of term I get, let's say, a 59. How can I have gone from being great to 59?
It's such a confusing message.
Yeah.
Because all the time I'm doing great. What you're actually doing is you are producing, like, it's like a test. It's a false negative, right? Because you're actually saying, oh, you're great, but you're only good enough for 59. But all that time that I was being great, you should have said to me, you know what, if you want to improve your score, you're great right now, but to be better. But so what happens is when the child in their mind hears, oh, I'm great, so I can continue what I'm doing. But actually what you're doing is you're operating at a mediocre level.
Yeah.
You know, you're operating at a mediocre level. And so it doesn't allow you to completely understand the errors. And that's why you're in school. You're in school to make mistakes. And this is what they don't. Sometimes someone said to me, oh, the teacher said, oh, the essay structure was bad. And I said, did the teacher teach the essay structure? So we're supposed to read minds now, are we? You didn't teach the structure. How am I supposed to know the structure? There are some children that know the structure because they've got tutors who will show them the structure. So I'm in school and I'm at a disadvantage because I don't have a tutor. Does that make sense? As a teacher, yes, you've got lots of marking to do. Yes, you've got lots of reports to do. And yes. But ultimately, you became a teacher because you wanted to change the destinies of children. You want to make sure that they learn. So why aren't you doing that?
Thank you. Thank you. Laura, are you done before I bring in the final question?
Somebody asked, do you work with adults who want to get back and improve in education? Yes, I do. If you're a woman, it's best to go to sistercircle.online because that's where I do my self-development, mentoring. So yes, if you're a guy, I don't know, I'll have a good conversation with you and tell you about yourself, but that's about it.
Well,
Laura, have you got a question? Your final question?
I had a few questions, but because the comments are honestly flowing in, the questions are kind of like, so I had to look through to see if I can just like pick one up quickly.
Somebody said something about, that's the one I was reading. Threatening them and beating them. What does that achieve?
Honestly,
you know what, we need to talk about. Anyway, this is not an abuse forum, but some parents, Elaine, I don't know how you grew up, but I know some homes where parents try to teach their kids homework, and because the parent don't know the answer, they bring their frustration and anger to teach
the children.
So you are teaching the child quadratic. You are saying 2x plus 4x. You don't understand, and you are shouting, why don't you understand this?
Listen. When you have a toothache, you don't pull out the tooth yourself. You go to a dentist.
That's it.
If you don't understand the methodology that's being taught in school, why are you trying to teach your child?
Exactly.
Get somebody to help you. It's okay to outsource.
Yeah.
It's network. Because if the person hasn't
outsource. I don't understand parents that do that. I know that I can't teach my children maths because I value my relationship with them. I don't want to become a tyrant. So what did I do? I got them a maths tutor, or I get my brother to show them, because I don't want to end up beating them when they don't understand. Because one thing with parents is that they think that children understand the same way they understand.
No.
So you might be a visual learner or auditory learner, but your child is a kinesthetic learner. That's going to be really difficult for you to deal with.
That's very good. Yes, Sharon Adams asking, are you going to have more of these presentations? Yes, Sharon, we're going to do that. Thank you very much. And we will advise all our listeners, our viewers, to please try and subscribe to our channel. We hope to bring Elaine back again. She's been, somebody just texted me, you need to bring Elaine back Why is it that parents spend so much money and time in educating children who are in Africa than the ones here? Because here education, what is it about free UK education that makes parents unbothered? In other words, like parents here don't seem to be really involved in their child's education like than those in back home. I don't know if you can identify with this. I'm not sure, but I can understand what this person is trying to say. Aisha is trying to say, yeah. Do you understand that? Like, so basically, you have.
I do understand, but I
don't understand.
I do understand, but
I think she's trying to say this.
What is it about free education that makes
parents?
Because
it's in the question. No, it's in the question. It's because it's free. They feel like they don't have to do anything else. No.
Whatever type of education you're doing, paid for, unpaid for, as a parent, attainment level of a child is rooted to the parent's involvement in the education system, in the way that they're educated. So if you're going to sit there and expect the school to dictate where your child ends up, your child won't end up very well. Sorry.
No.
Bottom line.
I also think part of the story is this. I don't know. I mean, back then, because obviously in the Ghana education system, you take your child to school. If your child is performing, underperforming, being stubborn, doing anything, the teacher's duty is to discipline and put your child in shape. They help the child. But when you come to the UK, it's different. So sometimes, and I'm saying this because no, I'm just saying because some people carry that mentality.
I'm not going to agree with you on that.
No, neither am I.
Sorry.
No, I'm just saying that some people carry this mentality.
No, discipline is not the teacher's responsibility. Yeah, it's from the home. Inherently.
No, if you understand boundaries in the home, you're not going to be stupid at school. I'm sorry.
No,
I agree.
Because what's going to come into your mind is, oh my gosh, what's my mum going to think? Or what's my dad?
If it get back to mum, what would she do?
Exactly. So you're not going to behave like that. And then the other thing is that the same responsibility that African teachers have, that's the same responsibility you have here.
These teachers have.
But you just choose not to ask any questions. Why?
And I don't understand why.
My problem with African schools is that they tend to beat children for no reason, and that's
for punishment not needed.
That's a whole nother question.
That's a whole different story. The trauma, the PTSD is let's just leave that there. It's not for today.
It's not for today. That's for another discussion.
It's not for today.
I just think that the discipline and the crossing of boundaries in schools is there. You know, the consequences, that's the word I'm looking for. The consequences of bad behavior, the consequences of not sticking within the boundaries, because there are laws of the land. And that's what school is trying to teach you, that there are boundaries, that if you go past them, these are the consequences. And for you to say that, no, that's not the teachers don't bother here, that's because parents don't ask.
Yeah.
And the reason why parents don't ask and they wait until the child is on suspension, or they're basically being referred to a referral unit, is because the parent never got involved in the first place.
Exactly. Can I just say something? So I did a degree in education studies, right? And we learned something called behavior for learning. One of those was always offering the child a choice. And I've met a lot of Black parents, and Elaine is the first parent I've actually heard say she offers her child a choice. You can't just tell your child, give me your phone because you misbehaved. No, it's you've done X, you've got two options, either fix it or I take your phone. Of course they're going to fix it, because that's the choice. You made them feel like they were an autonomous being in the decision making. Meanwhile, you know that you got them to where you wanted them to be, but to them, they were involved. And that's what we lack in African homes. That autonomy doesn't start from home. So when they get to school and they get a little bit of autonomy, and the teachers that gave them the autonomy start telling them that you're not good enough, you're not this, they hold on to it. And I think Elaine said in the beginning that Black boys between the ages of 1 to 6 are 10 times higher academically than white boys. They are. But when they get to school and they're like, Miss, I want to become a footballer, Miss is like, I don't think you're there yet. And then they get home, you don't even ask them how school went. So what the teacher has said has not only stuck, but you have said nothing to negate what the teacher said. So it's not just sticking, it's going to grow with them. So any chance, any stage they get to, It's more of, miss said I'm not good enough. Mom or dad hasn't said anything to dispute it. So it has to be true. I need to be at the level that my teachers are putting me in. Kids go to school, they get put in lower sets, they get home, parents go to parents' evening, no book. People are watching this program. Ask them, how many notes have they written? Where is their books? Where is their pencil? Where what notes are they taking? They're just listening and they're not taking down any notes and applying it to their lives.
And then they're beating the child on the way home.
Exactly. Your teacher said this. No. What? Ask the teacher, how did you reach that conclusion? What made you think my child behaved that way? Why are you making an assumption? All these stereotypes, the teachers can have them, correct, but you as a parent, you need to deconstruct them in front of the teacher to know that you can do that to every child, but not my child.
Yeah.
You need to stick up for your child in front of the teacher so they can't mess with your child.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Exactly. I mean, I've had a teacher ask me if we speak English, and I said, is that not the language that I'm speaking to you? So what kind of stupidness is that? You know, and the thing is, you have to stamp these things out, because if you don't, by being silent, what you're doing, and I'm not saying that you need to go in there and be, you know, with this attitude. No, you go in there and you speak fact, and you say, and you have a chronological order of events, and you say, and make sure when they speak to you, you send that via email and say, thank you. Based on our conversation on date, you said this, and this. And then if you don't like, they can choose to ignore it. But you know what? It's there. It's evidence. Right? So what they rely on is the fact that we do not follow up. Yeah. So you'll say to somebody, when I spoke to you in June, you said that my son was here. We're now in September, and I need to understand. Okay, a good example because you've got the summer holidays, but 3 months later, I need to understand why he's not progressed. Is it that he's not concentrating in class? Is it that have we looked at this? Have we looked at that? And then the teacher begins to see that, no, I can't just wipe this child up. I need to work with this child because the parent is interested in the progress.
It's involved. The parents is not just sponsoring the child, but bringing them to school and paying for the teacher. The parents actually involved in supporting the child's education. The parents is they're facilitating the child's learning. And that's what parents are afraid of, especially when we are Black.
Wow.
Well, thank you very much. I've just like, Elaine, you're going to have the last comment. I know we've gone. I'm going to ask, I mean, a lot has been said. You're an accomplished woman. There's a lot of comments here.
Most state schools are preparing to get universal credit.
Most state schools are preparing the children to take universal credit.
I'm done.
Parents should invest and supplement by supporting their children to do more than. Wow, thank you.
You know what, Yvonne? That's true. I agree.
I'm so done. And it's true.
It is. It is. I remember when I was doing my GCSEs, my teacher said to me, I'm not teaching you to get an A. This is a C class, and that's what you're going to get. So no matter how I disagree with my teacher to put me on a higher for English, she put me on foundation, and God said to her, you will not destroy my child because I still got to be in English doing foundation. So
praise God. Now, for those of you watching, if you've really enjoyed this informative program, please make sure you subscribe and also send it to your friends, send it to a family, because we can only be empowered. You know, we can be empowered through many means, but one of the means I know we can be empowered through is educating our people. So please send it to a family, send it to friends, send it to somebody who will watch this program and subscribe, because we plan to do this more. Can you please talk about scheduling fun time too? Yes, we will talk about that. I think somebody's asking, fun time. I mean, I think this person is trying to find out, obviously you're going to study, but we also need to make room for fun. Am I right?
No, the thing is, people need to understand what is study. Sitting in front of a book is not necessarily study. Do you know that you can study by baking a cake? You learn about maths. You learn about spatial awareness. You learn about physics. You understand about how cakes cook. That's learning, but that's also fun time, because people have the notion that you're only studying when you're looking at a book. That's incorrect.
And like you said, not every child learns the same way.
Exactly. So you've got a child who's a kinesthetic learner, that's sitting in front of books just going to frustrate them.
Yeah, and it's not going to work.
No. No.
Learn science by making slime. Learn science by making bottle rockets, volcanoes, building cars. There's math, English, science in all of these things.
Thank you. Somebody once asked me about a turkey that I made at Christmas, and they said, "How comes your turkey is so succulent?" And I said, "I applied laws of physics." And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The laws of convection." And they said, "I've never heard of anybody using physics to cook a turkey." And I said, "Well, when you cook, you use physics in an oven because you have if you have a convection type oven, if you have an electric oven, if you have a gas oven, it all operates differently." And they were just like, "I never thought about it like that." And I said, "Yes, learning is not just looking in a book."
No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, you wanted me to give closing remarks.
Yes, I was going to say, and okay, I wanted you to give the closing remarks, and I also want you to, I want you to empower somebody.
Oh my goodness.
Empower somebody who is listening to this, who thinks that, maybe somebody has walked out on them with children and they're thinking, how am I going to do this? How did this lady do this? What was her strength? What made her so strong? I know your faith in God does, I'm not afraid to talk about our faith in God, but I just want to empower somebody who is listening to you. What are you going to say? That's your closest. Just share something with us. Yeah.
I think that what's important in all of this is that you don't allow your current circumstances to define who you are. And I keep saying this, make a decision, because there is a saying that says, as a man thinketh, so he is. And so when you begin to think a certain way, you begin to action a certain way. When you begin to action a certain way, your children then begin to see you operate in a certain way. And they want to follow you. You have to lead them in a certain way. And so I think that, the Elaine that you see today is not the Elaine that was 3 years ago. And it's because 3, 4, 5 years ago. And it's because I made a decision. I made a decision that I wouldn't be the status quo. I wouldn't be the norm. I would rise above that, and my children would be pure examples of them. And I keep saying to everybody that, what are you leaving? What legacy are you leaving? I want my children to have a name that wherever they walk in the room, they'll say, "Oh yes, your mother was, your mother did this," and that my generations and generations and generations to go on with, they begin to walk in that name. So when you have the surname Guinness, when you have the surname Hilton, when you have the surname Windsor, you walk into rooms and the work that has been done before you even came along speaks for you. It speaks for you. And that's what I think every parent on here should aspire to be. Get your seat at the table. Begin to have a conversation that is different. That makes differences for the generations that are to come. That's me personally.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you so much for spending the Sunday evening with us. Elaine, education strategist, it's been wonderful having you this evening, talking about how we can improve our children's education, because that's all we are here for. Thank you so much. Next week, Sunday, we are here. We have Professor Patrick Lumumba talking about the true impact of slavery and colonization on us today, on every one of us today. And the week after, on Friday, we have Dr. Freddie Haynes, who is, both these two guys, they are trailblazers. They are drum major for justice, and they speak truth to power. And I want you to tell somebody that Sunday, 8 p.m., be here, and Friday 9:15 p.m., please be here to support us. I don't know if we've got the last advert, guys. You can just show it as we bring the program to an end.
Okay. During this Black History Month, I'll be speaking on
the Pacone and night and myself. And so we for one cat. And we wish you one cat. Yes, Ramwa, the little cram up.
Jerusalem, Ikayalami, Ilondoloze, Uhambenami, Zungangishilana. Jerusalem, Ikayalami, Ilondoloze, buso wami awukhulana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukhulana ilondoloze